Hello, everyone. My name's Jenny. I'm Will's editor and have worked with him on all 5 Tuvas so far. With me today, obviously, there's Will and Girly, or Definitely Girly. And it's been an absolute privilege to work with these 2 fantastic people. So we thought it may be very interesting for people to understand a bit more how working with a sensitivity reader happens in practice. So I don't know whether you've got anything to say at this point, Will.
Just that this is one. I just think this is lovely that we can get together, the 3 of us, and have this chat about Tuva and about how DG makes the books better than they otherwise would be, and to kind of mark this 5th book and the 5-year anniversary of the Tuva Moodyson universe is very special for me. So I'm really, really pleased.
Definitely. Because I think both, well, I certainly feel this, and I think you might too, Will, that Tuva wouldn't be the woman she is without DG.
Yep, I absolutely agree. I think over the 5 books, Tuva has developed and grown and aged and learned a lot of things, and so have I. And the way that the Tuva books come about it really is a collaboration. You know, the first draft is it comes out of my strange brain, and then it's a collaboration. It's DG's invaluable input. It's your input, Jenny, which is fantastic. It's my wife's input about Swedish customs and things like that. It's my agent's input, and I love the fact that it's a team effort. And I feel like these books are kind of, I don't know, we all made them happen, and I like that a lot.
Definitely. DG, have you seen Tuva grow across the series?
Yes, definitely. When I first met her, it's similar actually to how I form relationships. It takes me a long time to form relationships. It takes a long time for me to get to know people because I can't do big group settings. I can't have massive conversations. I don't catch people's kind of aside. So if I want to get to know someone, I have to really spend a lot of time with them. And so Tuva grew in that way, in that I got to know her and the readers got to know her, and Will's revealed a little bit about her in each book, and she's almost become more comfortable being herself as well. Like in those early books, she's definitely more, she holds more back and you don't see so much of her, but by book 5, yeah, you can see her being more gutsy and there's a bit more, that you just learn a bit more about her. She's grown a lot, I think.
I personally think it's been extraordinary just how much you've been able to help us show what Tuva feels in certain situations. I know in Red Snow there's a scene where the lights go out and the absolute panic, and I just hadn't had the imagination really to think what that would be like in practice. Yes,
I mean, I think Will definitely puts me outside of my comfort zone when I'm reading this book, when I'm reading any of his books, because he puts Tuva enormously out of her comfort zone. And in that scene where the lights go out, I mean, for context, if I'm away for the weekend and it's like a dark country house, I will look for pinpoints of light in the room so that when I turn the lights off, I've got something to focus on. If it's a fire alarm light or a strip of light under the door, just anything to cling to give me back that sense. Because when light goes, as a deaf person, you're left with very little else that is useful. You know, sense, taste, they're not that great in pitch black. Whereas, you know, that sight is so important to help piece together what you're missing from an oral, like an audible point of view. So,
yeah. How do you think you've managed to portray that well? Do you sort of channel being Tuva, or, you know, how do you make it seem so threatening on the page?
I mean, I don't know. I spend a lot of time with Tuva, and I feel like I'm getting to know her better and better. but I still don't fully understand her. That's why she's such a pleasure to write, is I'm still trying to learn about her. But when I'm writing a first draft, I'm so intensely in her head. That's why I never really describe what she looks like, because I don't really know. I'm always looking out through her eyes and trying to see how other people react to her. And I guess I just do my best. I think I can get to a certain point through empathy and research. You know, I try and do fresh research into what it might be like for Tuva in different situations before I write each first draft. And then I can get so far, and then I can't get further without DG's input. And then you will pull me up on details throughout the narrative. And that's just what I can't get, those little details. And that's what adds, I think, that extra special kind of level, which makes it all the more authentic and believable.
I often think part of what works so well with Tuva's characterization is her slightly brusque relationship with the world and her awkwardness, and the way that makes people awkward back with her. They don't quite know how to read her. And I mean, is that something you experienced, DG?
Yeah, definitely. I'm an outsider friend. I am that person stood on the edge of a room. I am the person that opens their mouth, and while they are talking, their brain is also going, why are you saying this stuff out loud? Like, I am that kind of awkward person. And I think as a deaf person, you read so much body language, so you're constantly reading the body language of the person opposite, and you apply it to you. And it might just be that the person opposite is thinking, why am I saying this stuff out loud? But you apply it to you and you think, oh, they're not enjoying talking to me, and I can't hear them, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, when I lived in London, I used to go to a lot more book launches and stuff, and I was terrible at that. I used to see all these people and just stand right and at the back and be completely awkward and eat the pretzels. Like, I can really relate to her in how she is. Hard relate.
I should say as well, without any good reason, really, I was also extremely awkward, like all the way growing up, as a teenager, as a young adult. I felt like an alien growing up. I was always on the edge, and I was always trying to look at other kids and think, how are they so carefree, and how can they form these relationships and be, how are they all so sorted in their lives, you know, when I'm still trying to figure everything out. So maybe that awkwardness helps in that way, that I can relate to Tuva on that level at least.
Yeah,
I think what awkwardness does with a character is that it gives space around them and kind of like a slow beat, so the action is different to how it works with other protagonists. So Tuva seems to me to be very resourceful, but she's a cool character. She's cool under pressure. Is that fair, do you think, Will, or is that me just, you know?
I don't know. She's just Tuva to me. I kind of feel my way through her character rather than thinking about it, and rather than, I've never written a CV down for her. I just feel like she doesn't suffer fools very gladly. She's got quite firm like principles that guide her through life. She's got a really acidic sense of humor that I like, that helps her. And she's cool in a way. And she's very kind of motivated in terms of writing good stories. But she's also very reliant on a couple of key relationships, people who really get her and people she trusts. And I think those relationships took a long time to form. And Tuva doesn't have hundreds of friends, but she has Tammy and she has Lena, and that's kind of her family. And for me, that's like the backbone of the whole series, is those precious relationships that she can always fall back on. So no matter how dark the books get, the readers always know that she has that support.
Maybe that is why the end of Bad Apples was such a sucker punch, because it ends with something awful within that family. Yeah. And totally unexpectedly as well. And talk about throwing a grenade into a story.
And I didn't plan that. I didn't know that was coming. It happened when I was writing it, and it just felt very organic that would happen. And yeah, I felt very uneasy with it, and I feel kind of guilty putting readers through that.
I have to say, my feedback on that book, I gave all my feedback on the sensitivity stuff, and then I was like, please give Tuva a break.
Yes.
With my last big feedback, like, just give us something great, you know, even if it's just a holiday for a couple of weeks, like anything.
Or a kitten to play with, or something.
Anything.
Yeah, sort of sweet. But yeah, poor old Tuva. I mean, one of the things I love about the books is looking for the hearing aid drama that there is likely to be in each book, in that the batteries are going to run out, or, you know, it's wet weather. I mean, I would think a lot of hearing readers had no idea that things like hearing aids are so sensitive.
Yeah, I'm probably not the best person to talk about this, because I think Will taught me a lot about hearing aid maintenance that I didn't know about. So I was a late comer to hearing aids. I chose not to wear them until I was in my 30s, but and I've never I never look after them like Tuva does. I will walk in the rain with them and things, because and sometimes I do question his decision to make her take them out, because I'm like, seriously, at this time you'd make her take her hearing aids out? Like, I would be to hell with the hearing aids and leaving them in, you know. So yeah, they are fragile, but I mean, mine have survived numerous trips through the washing machine and things like that. So I think it reflects the isolation of where she lives, because, you know, mine have survived numerous trips through the washing machine, but my hearing aid clinic is 20 minutes down the road. You know, she is isolated in Gaverick, and I think it's another indication that builds that picture of just how alone she is. You know, if her hearing aids go, it's probably not as easy as driving down the hill to get them sorted out. So yeah, but it was a learning curve for me too.
There's likely to be a very big moose in the way, in my experience.
Or an axe murderer. I mean, an axe murderer seems more likely than a moose, to be fair.
Yeah, all the troll carving sisters, you know, poor Tuva. Yeah. You're so mean to her, Will, at times, honestly.
Well, I don't know. I mean, she's able to deal with it. You know, she's quite a tough cookie underneath it all. And I hope that she does have good holidays between each book. I agree that she deserves that, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. Now, sensitivity readers have had bad press, in a way, on Twitter over the summer, with some people being very upset even at the idea of sensitivity readers. I mean, what do you think about that, DG?
I mean, to be honest, I've never thought about it really. I am not someone that embraces that side of Twitter. I'm all about what I've eaten for breakfast and catching up with people's cat pictures. But being a sensitivity reader for me is about respect for my disability. And it's also a chance to safeguard a character as incredible as Tuva and stop her becoming a stereotype. I don't actually think that would have been possible with Will, but it's a privilege to safeguard that and to meet that character early on and be partly to how she grows. But yeah, I mean, I do think that she could have a happier life at some point. But yeah, I find it's an absolute privilege. And I still remember being sat at my desk when I got that first email from Will saying, would I read his book? And I get lots of emails to read books, and I ignore most of them or reply politely. But this one, I was like, yep, okay, I'll do it. And I remember that decision exactly when I did it. And it was a long time ago now.
It would be, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I definitely can say we hang on, you know, from purely the editing point of view, we hang on everything you tell us. So I don't think there's ever been an incident that we've thought, oh, for the sake of the story, we would do something that you've advised against, even if it perhaps compromises a dramatic scene. you know, and so it has been a very different way of editing books, I think, and probably different for you, Will, writing. Now you're, you know, writing standalones as well, that you wouldn't have to do that with.
Yeah, I mean, I from what DG was just saying about that, those first email exchanges, I remember them really distinctly as well. I was so nervous, you know. I really wanted your feedback, and I didn't want to put it in as an imposition, because it's a big deal having to read a whole book.
Yeah. So
I was very nervous, and I'm so happy I sent that first email and that you agreed. And it's a big part of the books, and I guess a testament to how well this works for us is that DG is a writer, and that really shines through with your comments. Like, I can see that you sometimes you say, okay, in this situation you've just got something wrong, but then in the next point you might say, well, this is how I would feel in this situation. And I have a similar level of deafness to Tuva, but Tuva might feel in a different way. So feel free to interpret this how you feel, because everyone's different. And that's very generous when you say things like that. And it's very, very helpful to me to know that I can still make a judgment call within certain constraints. And I don't know, I just think that since, I think 2016 or 2017, when we had those first chats, you know, and I think a big part of this as well is the fact that you and I kind of talked. And Jenny, it wasn't you saying you need a sensitivity reader. It was, I think, before we might have had that chat, it was me thinking I would love some input from someone who has lived experience of this.
Yeah.
And for me, it's just been positive all the way through. There hasn't been any negatives at all. And I'm really nervous when I get my wife's feedback on Tuva, and I'm really nervous when I get DG's feedback. And it really means a lot to me that you two read the books. It really does.
Yeah. No, I 100% second that. And yes, and I can remember thinking, we've got to get this right. And then I think Will said to me, actually, I think I know somebody. And it's just like, oh, how fantastic. And then, you know, I think we've actually, as each book has gone on, in a way, we've got more confident in Tuva's deafness. And it's become more interesting in that you can often in fiction achieve more by saying less. And as her relationship's altered to it, you know, so I think that's been interesting to have the luxury of that in a series. So, you know, I'll just throw that out there because, you know, it's a situation editors often don't find themselves in. So, you know, thank you, DG. It's been an education. Do you feel that you sort of get pushed into being almost like a standard bearer for being a commentator in this way?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think no one size fits all with deafness, and I've always maintained that throughout the years I've been blogging since 2008. I can't know what it's like for someone else to be deaf. It's not like with short-sightedness. If you have standard short-sightedness, you can put on glasses and you can see again. You know, my hearing aids help me, but not brilliantly. I still can't hear cats and alarms and stuff. So I don't think I represent anyone other than myself and Tuva. But I think if you can raise awareness for what it's like to be any kind of deafness and get people to think about perhaps the isolation or how you can make the world more accessible for people with hearing loss, then that's only a good thing. But I would never ever claim to, you know, be a spokesperson for all deaf people, or you know, say that Tuva is a representation of a deaf person. She's not. Tuva is Tuva, and she happens to have a hearing loss. So yeah.
I think looking at Will's reader reviews on Amazon, people very much think of Tuva as Tuva. Would you agree, Will?
Yeah, and I didn't have any expectations. I didn't know what would happen with Dark Pines, but people really feel an affinity to her or a closeness to her, which is very touching. And when I do live events, usually if it's a big enough audience, like at the festival, there will be a couple maybe of deaf readers, and they will either come up to me at the end or they'll say something, and that really means the world to me. And yeah, that has more of an impact on me than any review in the Sunday Times or the Guardian, for sure. So yeah,
it's nice to see deafness represented in books, but not as the priority narrative. So I mean, I will always get excited when I see a deaf character represented well in fiction or on TV. But the key thing for me is represented well, and I think that's, you know, Will reaching out to me and really kind of researching it, and that's where she's represented well.
And I think it helps that it's a long-running series, and that, you know, there's going to be 15 or 20 Tuva books, and that I don't feel like I have a need to like info dump lots of things in each book. I will hopefully go through a huge range of different prejudices and experiences and different technologies and different aspects of deafness and sign language and deaf culture, but I can do it in a kind of organic way. And as I learn through the books, Tuva will pick up different things as well, and things will move forwards in terms of accessibility, like this Zoom call, the fact that, DG, you were talking about how the functionality about captions, you know, that's going to go in one of the Tuva books, and that wouldn't have been relevant in Dark Pines. That was pre-Zoom, so it's quite nice that I can drop those in through the series.
Yeah. Trust me, Tuva would have Teams because she wouldn't have the patience for Zoom. So
what a great thing for people to know. And also, it does strike me that at some point, if Tuva has a child, I don't know whether you've got any plans for that in the future, Will, but if you did, because you've got a small child, DG, there's got to be a mine of information there to be delved into.
I've written that's some of the only blogs I've written in the last couple of years have been about deaf motherhood, because it was a bit of a shock to me. Like, I was always very nervous about it, about being able to hear my son and not being able to hear my son, and failing somehow, or not making friends in group things or enjoying stuff. And I think, again, it really magnifies that isolation. So yeah, it will, if she does ever have a family, get ready for isolation on a grander scale.
With your own writing, DG, has working with Will, has that influenced you at all?
Well, it's put me to shame, because I cannot believe how much he writes. And you know, I've been sat on a first draft of a book forever, but not especially. I mean, I am a diehard romantic fiction fan, and you know, I like reading. I like going to sleep reading about, you know, cafes on remote Scottish islands and love stories and things like that, rather than people trying to pull my teeth out and put them in a troll. But you know, I think it has it has made me realize, actually, that you don't have to throw everything into a book. Exactly what Will said earlier. Like, you can grow a narrative quite slowly, you can build things, you don't have to give everyone everything all in one go. And I think when I wrote my first draft, I very much threw everything into this book. I wanted people to know everything about everything, and I definitely have learned from Will about that. You don't have to. You can get people through a book without actually them knowing what she ate for breakfast. I mean, you do know quite often what she eats for breakfast, but you know, what she's wearing or what she looks like, or all those kind of things. You don't have to go, you know, give them everything. So that's been quite useful for me to realize.
One thing I think Tuva has taught me as an editor is the value of characterization. Readers might not remember a story, but they do remember the people, and they remember how that person made them feel. And I think that it has definitely affected the way I've approached editing other books subsequently. And
That's
yeah, sorry, Will.
that's very, very interesting that you say that. That's how I feel as a reader when I read other people's work. Like you say, you don't remember necessarily the twist or the or a plot point. You remember the way you feel about someone. And like for me, there are little glimpses in each book, like the way that Lena kind of looked after Tuva after her mother died, and that takes kind of place off the page. That happens between books, but it really affects me that Lena kind of took her under her wing, not in a big grandstanding way, just in a very quiet way. Like you can just stay in that room, and the way Tammy kind of looks out for her, but again, in a very quiet, subtle way. She doesn't push herself on Tuva. She doesn't ask anything of her. It's just kind of, I'm there. And that's, I guess that's a universal feeling that we all appreciate.
Yeah. I think Tammy, her language is language of love, is language through food. And so those scenes where she's cooking Tuva some fantastic noodles or whatever it is, you 100% get the level of their relationship at that point. Yes, she's running a business, it's her job, but there's something about the way those scenes are written. So, you know,
you've reminded me of a scene actually that I read. I can't remember which book, but there was a scene where Tammy's cooking for Tuva in her flat, and Tuva's at the absolute rock bottom, and I actually did howl my way through that scene because of the support that Tammy showed her. My heart just ached in that scene. I regularly cry during my read.
I know the feeling. Yeah, and I think as well, what Will does very securely is he knows what to leave out. So in a way, Tuva's world, it is an imperfect world that's shown. It's a very sparse world. And I think, you know, there's a lot of characterization through Tuva not having things, or she can't get somewhere, and it's not over-egged, but it is kind of like an interesting use of reverse characterization, and I think that then becomes very emblematic of her deafness. The deafness might contribute to those moments of stillness or loss, but you probably don't realize you're doing it, Will, but oh, I think Will's frozen.
No, and you're much better articulating that than I am. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. Do you want to say that again?
Sorry about that. No, I was just saying that you're much better at articulating that dynamic than I am. Like, because I really write with my gut and feel my way through it, but it's exactly as you say. I don't want to render her whole life in great detail. I don't think it's necessary, and I kind of want to afford her some privacy as well. She's a very private person, and I think early on DG would leave me some comments about how Tuva's isolation kind of resonated, isolation on many different levels, and the way that it takes her a while to form relationships or friendships. But once she does, they're quite important to her. So I think I probably built on that thanks to your comments.
And I've definitely noticed the way across the books Tuva's become much more confident in her observations. So whether she's standing at the edge of a room or whether she's looking at a massive pile of snow, whatever it is, she seems to trust herself a lot more.
Yeah, I always bear in mind though when I'm reading her, visually she's not an unreliable narrator, but the rest of it she's an incredibly unreliable narrator. So you're seeing it through her world, and so you get a sense of what it is like to be her, because you have no idea if what she's telling you is an accurate reflection of what's actually happening. You're going purely on what she's able to hear and make out and interpret. And so yeah, it's something I always keep in my head when I'm reading it, is this narrative might be completely different if Tuva wasn't deaf, because they would probably, yeah, stuff that she mishears or misses or just don't come into her kind of vision orally. Yeah, it's amazing. I think it's a really nice addition to the storyline.
Definitely, I agree. Right, I can tell you right now, we're getting towards the end of our Zoom time. DG, is there anything that you'd like to talk about that we've not covered? Sorry,
I don't think so.
To you like that.
I don't think so. Yeah, I think it's I just think it's really important people understand why we do this process and why it's an important thing to do. And you know, I don't know the controversy around sensitivity readers, because I just don't read that kind of stuff, because I don't think it does my mental health any good. But I just think it has been a positive experience from start to finish, and I am so happy that Tuva's journey doesn't seem to be ending, because it means I can carry on being that privileged first friend to her, and yeah, hopefully see some more exciting things, probably grisly things, and hopefully happy things happen.
Well, definitely stay away on Twitter from the very, very twitchy part about sensitivity readers. I think what it is, what it's partly been driven by, is some inexperienced writers don't realise the value of authenticity. Okay. And so if they were listening to this, which hopefully they will be, they'll suddenly see, oh, there is another side. It's not someone telling someone what to do. It's much more subtle than that, saying it's not going to convince if this person doesn't feel real. And that's a different issue, I think. Will, is there anything you want to cover?
I think this has been a great chat, and it kind of continues on from our chat that we had on Radio 4, DG, which was also really, really great. And I just, it's hard for me to put into words how grateful I am that you've read 500,000 words now of Tuva. That's a big chunk of time. And yeah, I feel very lucky. I really do. And I'm glad we can kind of continue our Tuva challenge together. Yeah, I feel like you're kind of one of her friends / mentees, you know, it's kind of Tammy and Lena and you.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
I 100% second that, you know, and speaking as you know, someone who kind of has to be the bridge between the author and bringing a book out, I've got to say both of you have been always complete delight to work with, completely open-minded, intelligent, you know, obliging, follow deadlines, all of those things. So, you know, I cannot say enough how privileged I feel to have been on this Tuva journey across those 5 books.
I missed a deadline on Bad Apples by 5 days because I couldn't read it at night, because it just gave me nightmares. So I was trying to read it with a young son and a full-time job in the day, like when I was having lunch and stuff, because if I tried to read it at night, it was just like, oh. So my father's actually reading Bad Apples right now, and he's texting me going, whoa. So yeah, it's that was the one deadline I did miss, because it took me a little longer to read it.
In publishing terms, 5 days is still hitting the deadline. So we all set very, you know, we set false deadlines. So
noted.
Okay, well, look, thank you both. That's been utterly fantastic. I hope people enjoy listening to this and watching it later, and I hope people feel they've actually learned something.
Thank you so much. It's been great chatting.
Brilliant. Okay, I'm going to stop recording now.